Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our virtual Tar Heel tour stop. We're getting so close to when we can all be back together and join you in a more traditional way. Unfortunately, this still is the best way for us to reach you tonight, but man, we are excited to be here. My name's Jones Angell. I'll be guiding us through the next 45 minutes to an hour as we talk about what has been, gosh, one of the most unique and challenging years for Carolina athletics, for all of us. Doesn't matter if you're in athletics or not, but one of the most unique and challenging years that we've ever had. We're going to talk a ton of Tar Heels as well. And we have a bunch of Carolina special guests that are going to be joining us throughout our time. That includes Carolina AD Bubba Cunningham, Rams Club Executive Director John Montgomery, head women's basketball coach here at Carolina, Courtney Banghart, and the Hall of Fame head coach of Carolina football, Mack Brown. All of them are going to be with us. I know you'd much rather hear from them than me, but before we get to the guest, I did want to just quickly highlight some of the success that Carolina has had this past year. Team national championships for men's and women's tennis in the ITA indoor event earlier this year. It was just the second time ever that the same school has won the men's and women's title in that event in the same season. Team ACC championships for field hockey, it's fourth straight. For men's lacrosse, for women's lacrosse, it's fifth straight ACC title. And women's tennis, also its fifth straight ACC championship. Carolina football, can't wait to talk to Coach Brown, being selected to the Orange Bowl. First time in its history, first major bowl since the Cotton Bowl in 1950. Can't wait to talk to Coach Brown about that and more. Individual national championships this year for Alexa Graham of women's tennis at the ITA indoor event, and also Austin O'Connor for Carolina wrestling, and individual conference championships as well for Peter Fountain, just a freshman in men's golf, took home the ACC individual title, and also Elizabeth Colton won the all-around conference championship for Carolina gymnastics. What a wild year and successful year it has been thus far. Plus, still going on, because remember, a lot of the fall sports had to move their championships to the spring. So going on right now, field hockey is in the Final Four. It will face Iowa in the national semifinals on Friday. Men's soccer is in the round of 16 of the NCAA tournament. It faces Stanford on Thursday. Women's soccer will meet up with Washington. That's tomorrow in the round of 16 in its NCAA tournament. Women's tennis, just announced yesterday as the number one overall seed in the NCAA tournament, starts play this weekend. Men's tennis, the number 6 overall seed in its NCAA tournament, starts this weekend. And both the women's lacrosse and men's lacrosse teams will not only be in the NCAA tournament, but expected to be very high seeds. The women likely the number 1 overall seed. The guys have a chance to be the number 1 overall seed and certainly will be a top 4 seed. They will find out their destinations next week. Okay, couple housekeeping items before we get to our guest. Want to remind you that this event is being recorded and will be made available to Rams Club members on demand after the conclusion of this event. And I know we have several folks that are with us tonight that are also going to join us tomorrow night when we'll be joined by Jenny Levy and Hubert Davis. And for that event, you will be receiving the log-on information coming up once this event is over. So if you are joining us tomorrow, you will get a fresh set of login information for tomorrow's event. Okay, for many years, Carolina's one of its strongest corporate partners has been our friends at Wells Fargo. And they support all students and student athletes at Carolina with financial education tools. And Wells Fargo provides an annual $10,000 postgraduate scholarship to a student athlete planning to pursue an advanced degree. And the most recent recipient of that scholarship, Gino Esposito of Carolina Wrestling. Gino's GPA, the exact same as mine was at Carolina, 3.906. And he's going to plans on attending the UNC Master of Accounting program. Gosh, thank you, Wells Fargo, for your continued support of the University of North Carolina, Carolina athletics, our students, and our student athletes. All right, let's get to our guest. I know you're ready to hear from some other folks. Let's get started with the gentleman who is one of the most respected athletic directors, not just in our conference, but across the nation. And we are so lucky to have him guiding Carolina athletics. You see him popping up on your screen now. Wherever you are, please help me welcome Bubba Cunningham. Bubba, how are you, sir?
Great, Jones, and great to be with you, and great to have a Tar Heel tour year starting. So I'd much rather be on the road. And I was a little bit like I was talking to one of our student athletes the other day, and they said, man, I'm just looking forward to getting into the classroom. And I feel the same way. I'm looking forward to getting on the road and seeing some people and going to some events on the road. I like the home games, but the travel and getting out there is really something that's important. And I appreciate all the support the folks have given us, even though they haven't traveled and we haven't traveled. But it's great to be with you tonight.
Bubba, I think it's fair to say that this is as unique a season, as I mentioned at the top, as we've ever experienced in college athletics. What has this year been like for you as you've tried to navigate Carolina through this incredible time?
You know, it's been the strangest year for everybody in the country, and everybody has suffered and endured in very different ways, and a lot of personal sacrifice. But it takes me back to a little more than a year ago, I guess, when we had to, I guess it was back in March, and we had to call Chris Miltenberg, our track coach, and he was flying to New Mexico to be with the team for the NCAA championships for the indoor, and said, you have to come back and you have to bring the team with you. And, he wrote a letter, and I've talked about this before, to his team about grit and resiliency. And boy, I don't think there was a letter that was more impactful or actually spoke about what we were going to endure for a longer period of time. And I just think he hit the nail on the head when he talked about that with his team. And then I think back to last summer, almost a year ago now, when Rick Steinbacher and his staff was really trying to align themselves with the return to campus. And how do we bring students back safely and with all the protocols that had to be in place? And he just did a terrific job with that. And then you fast forward to the fall when it looked like nobody was going to play anything. And thank goodness for Kevin Guskowitz, our chancellor, who really held our presidents and chancellors of our league together. And John Swafford, who really worked with some of the other commissioners. The SEC was going to play, the Big Ten wasn't going to play, the Pac-12 wasn't. And it really came down to whether the SEC was going to play. And thankfully, they held together and we had the opportunity to play. And as Coach Brown, who will be on later, we'll talk about it, but the best part of the academic year for any of these students is the experience of coming together as a team, or actually some of our students being able to come and go watch a game. And so it was remarkable. And then to have the year that we had, get to the Orange Bowl for the first time in our history, what a testament to the coaching staff and to the students, what they were able to endure to get there. And then both teams making the basketball tournament, Roy retiring at the end of it, Hubert coming on. So it's been incredible. I was really worried about it financially, but this group that we're talking to tonight, I mean, many of them football season ticket holders, that allowed us to keep the money. That kept us afloat for the year. The Victory Fund that we're currently in is a way for us to continue to lessen the debt that we're going to incur this year, and to launch the Forever Tar Heels campaign to continue to keep our incredible championship women's programs just in the championship form that they're in has been absolutely outstanding. So I can't thank this group enough and extend my appreciation for all that they've done.
Bubba, I mean, you had to hire a baseball coach, a men's basketball coach. You just learned that Jan Mann is retiring as your women's golf coach. How have you tried to navigate through all these major coaching changes in such a unique season?
Well, it's hard. You always, just like the recruits, the coaches are going to have some people coming to campus here they've never met. And trying to recruit somebody and do Zooms is really hard. Fortunately, it's been a year, so we're getting a little better and a little more comfortable with it. But fortunately, with Hubert being here, it was easy to interview him in person. So we were able to do that, and he's been going to be an absolutely fantastic fit. And it's going to be hard to replace Jan. She's done a wonderful job with our program. But we've had coaches here that have been here a long time. And I remember a couple of years ago, we had all the coaches over for dinner prior to the start of the season. And just on a whim, I said, well, I wonder how many total years of service we have here. And of the 20 coaches, we have over 400 years of service. And Ron, at that time, Ron led the years of service with 50 years, Ron Miller in our fencing program as well. I guess at some point they're going to have some turnover, and I guess I'm responsible for picking the next one. So couldn't be happier with the group of coaches we have. And we do have a little bit more turnover this year, but they do an outstanding job. And we have 8 of our current head coaches that have won national championships, and we've added a couple more to it in the last couple of years.
Oh, but there's so much going on right now just around the NCAA. So many major topics that are going to change college athletics. It feels like name, image, and likeness, the new relevance of the transfer portal. How are you trying to understand all of these issues and then help lead Carolina through them as the Tar Heels try to navigate these uncharted waters?
Well, that's a great question. And I'm sorry that Courtney and Mack won't have any time to speak, because I can take the next 4 hours to talk about that. And everybody will be asleep, and that's all they want to talk to them anyway. So you hit the nail on the head. This is probably the most turbulent time in college athletics. We probably say that too much, but I do believe that with all of those things, when you basically punted the responsibility from the NCAA to Congress, and you're waiting on a Supreme Court decision, and you're sitting there on pins and needles about 30 different state laws, and you're not even sure what the NCAA is going to do about name, image, and likeness. That's one set of things that you have to worry about. The transfer portal has accelerated transfers like nobody's business. We've never seen it before. It does become free agency. But one thing that we did do a little over a year ago is we created the Carolina values. And as we make decisions as we go forward, there's going to be, we have 4 values of things that are important to us. And that's what our coaches continue to recruit with. One is, what we do is we provide an incredible education. And this education provides a great way to make a life, not necessarily a living, but a life after you graduate from here. Second is, we're going to maximize the opportunities to play. Unfortunately, I've seen so many different schools drop programs. Now they're adding them back. There's equity issues, there's racial issues, there's social issues. We're going to maintain our programs as long as we possibly can. And I'm delighted that this group has been so supportive through the Rams Club throughout the years. That's absolutely fabulous. We're also going to worry about and can try to push for choices for kids. We want kids to have more choices in what they do, and so that they can pursue professional opportunities. And then the last thing that we want to make sure that we just continue to have these kids that want to be here, to get that education. And so that we're going to continue to offer those educational opportunities to play the sports. And then we're going to have to figure out a way to pay for it. So that commercial activity is incredibly important to what we do. So driving the economic value of college athletics has been important, but that's the only way you can keep all of our sports. We have 2 that pay for the other 26, and we want to continue to do that.
Bubba, we did take some questions from Carolina fans. I wanted to address 1 or 2 of those before we moved on with our program. And by far, the most prevalent question was your thoughts on fans returning to stadiums and arenas next season, and if you had any idea of where that discussion is right now.
Well, the absolute most important thing is health and safety of our student athletes and the fans that would come to the games. Probably the second most important thing to me is we want to stay aligned with the university. We have to stay aligned with the university and welcoming students back in the fall, welcoming fans back. And so again, Rick Steinbacher and his staff have done a remarkable job of keeping our return to campus in lockstep with the rest of campus. We also want to be competitive. We know that there's a distinct competitive advantage when you have fans in the arenas and in the stadiums. We need to have the fans there so that we can compete. We need to have the fans there so that we can pay for the various sports and the scholarships that we're offering to our student athletes. And then we want to do whatever we have to mitigate the risk. So if it's wearing masks, if it's social distancing, queuing up differently for restrooms and concessions, we'll have to do all those things. And again, Rick and his staff and our John Bruner and the operations staff have all done that. So if I think of 4 things that are most important to us, that's what they are: safety, alignment with campus. We want to be competitive, so we want to get as many in there as we possibly can, and we'll do any mitigation effort we have to, but we want people to be safe.
One more, Bubba, before we move on. I had a question about the recently launched, or at least recently publicly stated, relationship with Brander, and what exactly that relationship is and how it affects Carolina athletics.
The relationship with Brander is a group licensing program for our former student athletes. It allows us to sell with them their name, image, and likeness. So like a picture of you right now with that logoed shirt, we would be able to sell that, or we could sell your former jersey.
You wouldn't get much from mine, Bubba. I can promise you that.
I know, and that coach that recruited you is not here any longer also, but outside of that, and so what it is, it's a group license opportunity. And I'm a firm believer that the group license is far better than the individual license. We, as I mentioned, 28 teams, 2 of them generate more than we spend. So we're in the revenue sharing program already. And so what I would like to see us do is get to a group license so everybody on the team could sell their jersey. The university would get half the royalty, the student athlete would get half the royalty. Our student athletes could be in a video game. So if they bring back football, bring back Carolina football, put our names on there, put the student's name on there, give them a share of the income. Same thing with basketball jerseys, soccer jerseys, lacrosse jerseys, it doesn't matter. I think that's the best next step. Individual license, we have no idea what will happen in recruiting, and we have no idea how much the agents are going to get into the recruiting space, and that really concerns me.
Certainly a turbulent time for college athletics. Can't overstate how lucky we are to have Bubba Cunningham guiding the ship here in Chapel Hill for the Tar Heels moving forward. Before we let Bubba go, I did want to ask Executive Director of the Rams Club, John Montgomery, to join the call now as well. And John, I was hoping that you, first of all, welcome, and hoping that you and Bubba could explain together a little bit the impact of our wonderful Rams Club members, what they have, the impact that they have on our mission here at Carolina, and also highlighting something that Bubba mentioned a little earlier in the Victory Fund and what that is and how important it is to the future of Carolina athletics.
Yeah, Jones, thank you. It's great to be with you. And thank you, Bubba. Thank you for your leadership through these tumultuous times. As you've said, this has been really an unusual year, but thanks so much. And, thanks to all the members that are joining us tonight, and they're making all these great things happen. I mean, Jones, when I hear your intro and what we've accomplished throughout the year and what's left to be accomplished, I mean, it's really amazing. And the reason that is happening is because of the support, the private support of people on this call. Then when I hear Bubba talk about the opportunities that are afforded to our student athletes, I would say, Bubba, could you just expand, just talk a little bit more on the student athlete experience? Since I have been here, we've been working together for a number of years now. That's been a number one priority of yours. And, how do you see that as, a distinctly Carolina experience?
Well, thanks, John. It is incredible. The support that the student athletes give each other is something that I think is unmatched. And you don't have that if you don't have mutual respect among all of the teams that we have. And it starts with our coaches. And the coaches continue to support each other. And I know you can hear some of that later between Courtney and Mack in the way Roy did it. And all of our coaches going to each other's events. And I could not be more proud than I was last Wednesday when the new commissioner of the ACC, Jim Phillips, came to visit campus. And we were able to bring him to many of the coaches' offices. We showed him all the different facilities, and he was in awe of the facilities. But the most moving thing I saw throughout the day was Jim's interaction with our Student Athlete Advisory Committee. And for those students to express their experience at Carolina, whether it was the coaches, whether it was the social issues, the racial issues, their ability to communicate with each other, their ability to express their views, their ability to play. their ability to go to Loudermilk and study, their ability to go and, to our fueling station that's been provided by this group. They were just so grateful for these opportunities, and it just made you feel good that we're providing an incredible experience for these students, and they're going to go on and do great things, which many of them already have.
Yeah, and you mentioned it, and I will say it. I know Courtney and Mack are coming up, but we just have such a wonderful leadership group. Our coaches are unbelievable. We always say we feel like we have the best coaches in the country, and we try to, and we do. We support scholarships at a really high level, and they're able to recruit unbelievable student athletes to represent this university. So we are proud of that, and I know our membership knows that, but I think we always need to reinforce that. And Jones, you mentioned the Victory Fund, the Carolina Victory Fund. That is a one-year initiative that we launched in October, I think, and that is to raise money over and above our annual fund to help offset budget shortfalls in athletics. And that money, and Bubba said it before, it directly impacts our teams and our student athletes. And we're really proud of that. But we are unbelievably proud of how many donors have stepped up and supported that fund. Almost 1,300 donors have made a contribution to the Victory Fund, and that we have raised $3.5 million so far. And that fund will be active through the end of our fiscal year, which is June 30th. And so we expect to raise more money in the Victory Fund, and I know we'll raise more unrestricted money through our annual fund to be able to support our teams and our student athletes and help Bubba through this difficult time.
And John, that Victory Fund is incredibly helpful. We tried to do what we could this year. We did have a hiring freeze, and so we have about 17 open positions in the department. We had a spending freeze, and I still sign off on any expense over $1,000. We had to do budget cuts. We did salary cuts of every single employee of our department, and we've had furloughs. So it's been a difficult time for them. We felt like we tightened our belt the best we could without affecting the student athlete experience. And that's because of the Rams Club and the generosity of the folks on this call. So I could not be more thankful and have more gratitude to the group that has provided these opportunities for these kids to win these championships. So it's a wonderful experience that we don't take lightly because of the generosity of this group.
Well, thanks, Bubba. That's well said. And I'll just leave it with this. I'm just glad we're all on the same team and accomplishing these great things. So thank you. Thank you, Jones.
Absolutely. Thank you, John. Thank you. But I think about that, a one-year initiative, already $3.5 million raised. That's incredible. Thank you for everybody who's a part of that Victory Fund and everybody who supports Carolina, which I know all of you do. Thank you so much for what you do, because it just wouldn't happen without you, members of the Rams Club. So thank you so much. And Bubba, again, John, thank you guys for both being with us today. All right, let's move on with our program. And our next guest just completed her second full season. I bet it's felt like a long 2 years for the head coach of Carolina's women's basketball team, leading the Tar Heels to the NCAA tournament this year. Courtney Banghart is a member, I didn't know this, a member of the Dartmouth College Hall of Fame, the New England Basketball Hall of Fame. There you go. Look, she's got some good muscles there. She was the National Coach of the Year in 2015 and honored by Fortune magazine in 2015, as well as one of the world's 50 greatest leaders. She is Courtney Banghart. Coach, great to see you as always. How are you?
I'm doing great. Like you said, year one transition, right? Year two, COVID. And so I'm just still a rookie is how I feel.
Well, tell us a little bit about year two. It seems like it was some very clear growth with your program, making the step to the NCAA tournament, had some great wins near the end of the year. I know over NC State and Virginia Tech and Georgia Tech, some really other good programs. How did you feel about year two?
I think the program is really going in the right direction, and sometimes the business doesn't always feel like it is. And we just have to keep adjusting, adapting, and staying true, as Bubba said, to the core values that we're about. And with that, success will follow. And we had 3 seniors this year. Some super seniors were in that group, but we had 3 seniors, and all 3 of them are currently on NBA training camp, at least rosters. So, in terms of getting what our jobs here in part is to, find the right talent. develop the talent while they're here, manage it a bit while they're here as well, and then graduate them to their place, whether that's in the pro game or in the world. And so, the program's in a good spot, and we're excited about what's ahead with the new guys coming in as well.
Coach, we can sit here and say, oh gosh, it was such a hard year, and wow, the sacrifices those kids made, that was incredible. But you lived it. I mean, you lived it and saw it every single day. What kinds of things did you, your staff, your team have to experience just to get through this season safely?
Yeah, I mean, I give a lot of credit. I know Bubba asked us to start the season, did we want to play, knowing that it would be very different. And in giving us that option, I, of course, extended that message to our team, and we said, yeah, we do. And then they did everything they could to keep us safe. And I think we were probably the only team in the conference that didn't get hit by the virus. And that I'm really proud of that, although imagine how limiting their experience was because of it. They really, really stayed true to giving ourselves the best chance to play. The hardest thing for a coach was that we just weren't really able to wrap our arms around them in the same way that we typically do, obviously, both literally and figuratively. We spend a lot of time with these young people. It's not just inside the lines. And, when you weren't able to amass more than 3 or 4 or 5 in my office at a time, that's really different than what we're used to, and you're not eating your meals together, and there's just that together time that as coaches, it's really a lot of the journey is outside the lines. And that was a part that there was a separation that we had to maintain for safety purposes. That was probably the hardest thing that maybe people on the call wouldn't realize was such a disruptor.
Coach, you've got an incredible recruiting class coming in, a top 5 nationally ranked class. That's coming after another highly ranked class who was your freshman group this past season. Yeah. Tell us a little bit about the class coming in, number 1, and then number 2. What's allowing you to bring in such high level talent to Chapel Hill?
Well, it's what I told Bubba on my interview, right? There are 2 kind of coaches in this business. There's those that can recruit and those that get fired. And so in order to ensure that I'm on the right side of this, I want to make sure that we're bringing people that fit what we're about and what Carolina's about, right? Because that's where they spend more of their time actually is outside of our bubble. And so, I give a lot of credit to our staff. I think we brought the juice. And then I think with Mack on the call too, he's been helpful. As he said, he only celebrates the recruits that we get. He doesn't take blame for the ones we don't, but we utilize him. We utilize Coach Williams. We really try to sell the family that is the journey here at Carolina, not just the basketball. But yeah, a top group. We've got a really top level guard coming in from Georgia. UConn was the very first person in her home. And I was probably the last because I've not yet gone in it because of COVID. But we found a way to get a really great lead guard from Athens, Georgia. We also have an excellent wing player from Kalamazoo, Michigan, who is the other of that kid that hadn't yet been on campus when COVID happened. So we sort of recruited remotely there. And then we have a kind of bruising stretch 4-man from New Jersey, who you're the kid you don't want to play against. So you just have to recruit her so that you don't have to deal with her, basically, which is always helpful. And then a local kid here from Cary, who's a top 10 player in the country, who she was the first recruit I brought on campus as an unofficial visit when I first got the job. And I said, I've got to get the good ones, the best ones to stay. And feel really grateful that we got Tiani Key over here from Cary. And then we brought in 2 grad transfers. One of them is from Princeton. Obviously, I had some advantage in recruiting her here. Her final 3 were us, Stanford, and Arizona, who those 2 schools played in the national championship game. So it was very fun to be able to talk with her through that game. I will say Mack recruited her with us on a Zoom. He was very helpful. And then Carolina's business school. I mean, she got admitted to the business school, and we really, we think it's better than a lot of the business schools that she was also looking at. And then lastly, Eva Hodgson, who's from my small town in New Hampshire that has 1 stoplight, was a very high level player out of the CAA out of William & Mary, graduated in 3 years and also got into the business school. So we got a lot of new faces, a lot of talent, and just good people. As I say, they're always all good in high school, but just really good people that I know Carolina will want to wrap their arms around very quickly.
Coach, one of the questions we received from a Tar Heel fan on the call was actually about transfers and balancing, bringing in an experienced transfer player as opposed to trying to recruit someone and having them here for 4 years, and kind of your approach to that and where you feel a transfer may be more beneficial than a recruit or vice versa.
I personally, first of all, you have to adjust to the transfer portal. There's as of today, there's over 1,000. And so it's not something you get to just ignore. However, there's a couple different ways to build your team, right? You can do it through the draft. If you look at the NBA, you can do it through the draft, which is how my beloved Celtics have done it, or you can do it by acquisition, which is how the hated Lakers have done it. And we philosophically would prefer to do it out of the draft. I like how we recruit. I think we know what we're about, and I love our ability to sort of win those battles. And so, preferably, I prefer the grad transfer route because it has to work for them because they only have 1, maybe 2 more years. But you get to really pick a piece that fits a void. Whereas if you take a younger transfer, you're actually borrowing on your future in a way, right? Because they're taking a spot that you could recruit the following year. And so, I think this is a business you can't say never and always. I think it's always ever changing, but we philosophically like to trust our recruiting and do it that way. Now, it'll be hard this coming year. NC State brought all 8 of their scorers back and 2 very talented transfers in. I mean, there's going to be some experience issues that we have to go through. But it's a journey, not a sprint, and we're committed to doing it the right way. So yeah, we'll mix and match as needed, but I like the draft.
Coach, and we're talking to Courtney Banghart, Carolina's women's basketball coach. I think at some point, at one point here earlier, we were talking about the Forever Tar Heels initiative.
Yeah.
How does that impact your program?
I mean, it's really, I have learned a lot in this job. And one of the things I've really learned and seen is just the breadth and depth of the fans across this league and across our country, and the donors. What they will go to no ends to ensure their team a competitive advantage. I mean, it's crazy to me. I've seen it in facilities. I've seen it in just getting butts in the seats. I've seen it in ways that they support the student athlete experience. And so, obviously people on this call are directly connected to that competitiveness, and we need it, right? We can't get out competed by our fan base or our donor base at other schools in our league. And so the Forever Tar Heel campaign is one such example of that. They give you, there's a monetary value that you can plug in immediately and utilize. And yet there's also a connection to, as Bubba, articulated, the winning in life, not just inside the lines, right? And that connection point of showing that Carolina cares about its female athletics, its women's sports teams. And we recruit with that a lot. We say, everyone talks about football and men's basketball. Well, you're a women's basketball player, so you should probably care about what your women, what the ethos of the female experience is on that campus. And the Forever Tar Heel, we just point right to it. We have a slide in our PowerPoint, which has now become how we have to recruit, unfortunately. But yeah, we highlight it as a source of strength, and we know it has a lot of tentacles in a lot of ways.
Coach, you have mentioned Mack Brown, who, of course, the Hall of Fame head coach at Carolina football, is on this call with us, and like to ask Mack if he can to join us. And Coach, you've mentioned him and the relationship that you two have and the benefits that he's been able to help your program. How have you leaned on people like Coach Brown and some of the other coaches around Chapel Hill to help you build your program?
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing that people need to know about someone like Mack is he doesn't need to do it, right? As he kind of jokes, he doesn't need the money and doesn't need the wins. What he wants to do is to make an impact, right? And he doesn't need to put so much time into caring about the success of the other sports here, but he does, right? And the best story I can give is I had a question. This has happened more than once, so either pick which one, but where I call and say, "Hey, babe, hey, bud, I just need a few minutes." And he literally says, "How about lunchtime today? Stop over." I mean, it's not like, yeah, let's do it in 3 weeks on this Tuesday at 10 a.m. Right. And this guy's got a lot of other things going on, and he's just, and then he follows up on it. Right. So he does the obvious things that most coaches don't do, which is help in recruiting and come to your games and send you a good luck text. But he does the things that aren't so obvious that it's what you really need, and doesn't get any credit for it. Right. It's not out there to be seen. And so him and Sally have just been, they don't just support me, they carry me at times. And I would say the same. My first friend here was Jenny Levy. I think even Bubba thought we were twins. I mean, I think people thought I was Jenny Levy. And that's a compliment because she's done a whole lot in her career here. But she really, she just, we played everything from we played tennis. She took me to dinner. I mean, we've just kind of done everything as a pair. Anson's like the old grandfather that mine has now passed. And so the old grandfather who has wisdom, we're in a book club together. And just is always, we went on that stretch in January, we won 1 game. And I heard from all of those coaches, Mack was like, "I'm going to break through the door soon if they don't let me in." And Anson was sending me like, "I'm just so glad you're here." And yeah, it's easy to talk forever about it. And I'm sorry if I'm boring everybody, but it's real. And someone who went through, a transition year and then a COVID year, I feel still somewhat disconnected from how this place really goes. But I know what its bones are, and that is just quality people that care. And I'm really grateful. And Mack is really the leader of that.
And Coach Brown, so good to see you. Why is that kind of stuff important to you, Coach?
And I was out of coaching. What I really missed, Jones, was mentoring young people and helping young coaches. And I'm glad Courtney called Anson the grandpa. That was better. I like that better. I'm already a grandpa. So thank goodness, Courtney, you didn't call me that. But I see people like Courtney. She's bright. She's driven. She did some amazing things at Dartmouth, even in her playing career. Came in with one sport and the coach changed, and she goes to another sport and becomes one of the best they've ever had. So I see a great future for her, and I love this place, and so happy to be back here. And I want it to be good, and I want her to be happy, and I want her to stay if she and Bubba want it that way. And so to me, I feel so honored when Courtney or any of our coaches call and say, can you give me a few minutes? And what I've got is experiences. I've got some bad ones. I've got some good ones. And I can tell them, don't do this. I've done this. It didn't work, but this worked for me. And if it works for you, great. And then I get out of the way because they run their own programs and they do a wonderful job. But one of the joys in my life is someone to ask. And I feel so honored when they would ask my opinion. And I want to, it's important to me that I give them the right opinion that I have and be honest and fair and transparent and make sure that they understand. And Courtney would know if she asked me and I said, I wouldn't do that. Here's why I wouldn't do it. I owe Courtney that. And I think that's really, really important. And not sure that I'm right, but I'm sure not right all the time, but at least it gives her another train of thought to think about.
Well, Coach Banghart, thank you so much for being with us tonight. Always great to see you. Congratulations on, I know, what was a successful year, but also a year that you're looking to build on as we move through the future. So thanks so much for your time, and look forward to talking with you again soon. That's Courtney Banghart. And now you've already heard from him. You don't need me to tell you this, that he's the all-time winningest coach in Carolina history. He's the winningest active coach in NCAA Division I right now. He's a national champion. He's a college football favorite. He's the head coach of the Tar Heels, Mack Brown. Coach, great to see you. How are you?
I'm doing great, Jones, and it's fun to listen to Bubba and John and Courtney and appreciate our fan base. Never more important than the last year and a half that you fans stood up and did some absolutely amazing things. Not only did some of you keep your season tickets and come to the game, some of you gave the money back and weren't able to come to the game. So thank you so much for what you do and how you do it. One of the biggest things that got us rolling because some of our competitors were so critical, Jones, is when we filled Kenan Stadium. And when we got back here, people said that nobody cares. Nobody wants to come. And I challenge this group to buy your season tickets and get in those seats and make sure we have full stadiums if you want to be good. And every game, it was absolutely packed. And I hate so much last year, so many things, but maybe one of the more important ones for me to say is that we play Virginia Tech, and that would have been a packed house. We play NC State, what a game. That would have been a packed house. Wake Forest would have been a packed house. And then the game against Notre Dame might have been our best crowd ever. And we needed our fans to help us win because we lost our home field advantage. So if you're sitting out there wondering, should you renew your season tickets? If you haven't, do, man, because we need you. And for you that already have, thank you so much, because I know things have been tough and tight out there for a year. And to hear John say that you've already done so much for the fund separately and all we ask you to do, and you just keep the givers keep giving, and we just can't tell you how much we appreciate it.
Coach, what was this year like for you? What did you learn maybe through this past year, as you had such an enormous responsibility to help guide this team, not just trying to win games, but through so many things away from the game of football as well?
Jones, I thought it brought us closer together as a department, because we all had unique and unusual problems that we hadn't faced before. So we had to get closer to our medical staff. We had to get closer to Bubba and Kevin, because we didn't know if we were going to play. And you've got health department guidelines for our state that are different from other states. You've got health department guidelines that are different in Orange County, and maybe more strict in some cases than in other counties. So we had to pull together, and we had to fight together, and we had to make sure that, number one, it was best for the young people, or we weren't going to play. Number two, how in the world can Bubba handle all the financial disruptions that we had through COVID, and still allow to have the kids to have the great experience that we want them to have at Carolina, and probably most importantly, growing with just the virus, and trying to figure out what's next, and wear a mask, don't wear a mask, you can't touch a ball, you can touch a ball, take your shoes off before you come in the house. No, that's okay now. So it was the only thing that was certain about last year was uncertainty to all of us. And then I was pouting in the spring, and told Sally one night, maybe we shouldn't have come back. This is crazy, man. We can't see our coaches. I can't see the players. We came back to have an influence on kids' lives. And as the ladies would understand out there, they're smarter than the guys. She told me, maybe you should have come back. Maybe this is why you came back to lead at a very difficult time. So lead your staff, help the university, lead these young people, and pick them up. You always say, take crisis and turn them into positives. Well, that's what you should be doing right now. And it really caught my attention. And from that point forth, that's what I tried to do, is try to fight for football and fight for these guys. And really and truly, after looking at it, and this is one of the greatest things that Bubba did, I thought, is we all felt like, for mental health, not just physical health, the young people wanted to play. Our students athletes wanted to play. They wanted to compete. So at times where Kevin and Bubba, people were really fighting them within the league and nationally not to play, they hung in there. And they said, let's look at every possible angle that's safe for our student athletes to compete. And they've done that. And then after looking at it, our athletes were safer with us than most would have been at home. We had trainers, we've got strength programs, we've got nutritionists, we've got doctors, we've got a hospital right next to us. If someone got COVID, we had the best care to get them there. So in the long run, and looking back, I thought it made us tougher, made us stronger. It pulled us closer together. It'll help us overcome adversity more easily moving forward, because it's hard to get much more mess than all of us have had for the last year. And at the same time, I thought that it was a rewarding year, and it was a fun year, because as Courtney said, she didn't have people step up and become problems because they did what they were supposed to do. And very honestly, same thing with us. I mean, while we had one person that missed a game because of COVID. Now, was their experience as much fun as normal college students? They couldn't go to bars, they couldn't go to parties. Absolutely not. But they wanted to play. And I was so proud that our older players stepped up and told our younger players, when a few of them went out to eat and messed it up in the summer, if you want to play, hey man, you stay in. We got to create a bubble around here. It's got to be about us. And if you don't want to play, if you don't care, go do something else. They'll let you keep your scholarship. But I thought our team leadership really stepped up and did a great job.
Coach, we do have some questions from some folks on the call that I want to get to, but wanted to ask you about a couple more things before we got to those. Number one was the NFL draft, of course, was this past weekend. Carolina extraordinarily well represented with 5 Tar Heels going in that draft. I'd just be interested in your thoughts and the feelings that you had when you saw those young men get to live out a lifelong dream for them and get drafted to the NFL.
Yeah, it's a dream for young people, Jones, to play in high school. And then they want a scholarship. And then it's a dream to get a scholarship. So these 5 guys get to come to the University of North Carolina. and an ultimate dream for you. You hope they want a degree. Some do, some don't when they get here, but they all want to play in the NFL. So that is a lifetime dream for each of those five. And we've told them now that you've just been drafted. You haven't even made the team yet. So next dream should be that you make the team and save your money and better prepare for your life after you get through with football. And I have to compliment Coach Fedora, because he's the one that recruited these five guys, and they wouldn't have been here without his tremendous evaluation. And then I have to really congratulate our staff on the preparation that they helped these young guys get from where they were to where they are. You start looking at Chaz Surratt was a quarterback. Tommy Thigpen got the guy drafted in the third round in 2 years. And Diami and Daz were dropping balls, and Lonnie Galloway did an outstanding job of getting there and helping the guys get more confidence. And those two running backs, Robert Gillespie did an outstanding job of getting them where they needed to be. And the strength and conditioning people, the nutritionist helped Michael Carter stay healthy and get stronger. And you start looking at Javonte Williams. He was a short yards and goal line back when we got here. So all five of those guys, I felt like, really benefited from our system, our program in general, whether it was medical, strength and conditioning, or nutritionist, and also our coaches, because they really put them in a better place 2 years after getting here.
Coach, you have a quarterback in Sam Howell, who's now a 2-year starter. He has rewritten just about every record in Carolina's record book, or if he hasn't, if he stays healthy, he's going to. And he's getting some buzz now on a national level for a potential Heisman campaign coming up in his junior year. How has Sam handled that? And what kind of discussions have you had with him about your expectations for him this upcoming year?
Well, I saw Sam in the training room today, and thank goodness he was just walking through to say hello. I told him, stay out of here. Don't come in here. He never changes. He's the same every day. He's got a very strong confidence about him, but he's got a level personality, and he competes and he can get emotional at times, but you're not going to see much change. So I would say that he's in better shape. He's more flexible. He's stronger. He's more confident. He's learned the offense better after 2 years. But you don't ever hear him talk about the Heisman Trophy, or he talked today about beating Virginia Tech. I mean, he said that's the most important thing we've got going, and he's right. So I think he's an outstanding student. He always does what he's supposed to do off the field, and the same on the field. He's become an outstanding leader, and we're just very lucky to have him. And now, like losing those five guys to the NFL and losing Sam next year, I'm sure, as a first-round draft choice, we got to get one of those younger ones ready to play, and that'll be one of our key goals for preseason.
It never stops. Never stops. Even when you've got Sam Howell, you got to start thinking about what comes next. Coach, before we get to close with some of these questions from our Tar Heel fans that are joining us, just one more kind of general question. You guys finished up spring a little more than a week ago now. Just your thoughts on your spring campaign and how beneficial it was for your team this year.
Jones, only 21 guys, scholarship guys on our team had ever been through spring practice.
Wow.
That's how young this team is. So everybody needs spring practice, but we needed it desperately because we're more talented than 2 years ago, but we're a lot younger than we were 2 years ago. So as Coach Darrell Royal told me at Texas, he said once, "What about your team?" I said, "They're really young." He said, "If they're young and good, that's a good thing. If they're young and bad, man, you got a problem because they're here for a while. But these are young and good." So it was very, very important. We started slow with kicking game last year. You usually can develop that in spring practice. And we brought in Coach DeWitt. He was a new guy, and he didn't even have a chance to have a kicking game until we started. There were more penalties early, and it was sloppier. And I think all of those are a factor of missing spring and not having the fundamental and the discipline that you teach in spring practice. And we didn't have a major injury in spring. So I really felt like it helped us a lot. We answered a lot of questions We've still got some unanswered questions at the obvious positions of running back and wide receiver and backup quarterback, but we're better and deeper at every other position than those two. And we'll probably be more like we were 2 years ago at those two positions, because we're not going to be as good as we were last year, especially at running back. So, but I like the fact that it's the most fun spring I'd ever been around. We were really physical, but we got a whole lot done. And now we've got 7 other guys coming in June 1st that are in that freshman class, but that class is really, really good. And roster management for our fans right now, you'll see some guys going into the portal across the country. We're not going to be a big transfer team. We're not going to lose a whole lot. We're not going to bring a whole lot in. We'd rather build it with young high school players. But Ty Chandler is a very good transfer that we did get from Tennessee. He's a grad transfer. I think he's really good, and he'll help us have an older, faster, experienced player in that room. And I think, Jones, to finish here before you get to the other questions, is for our fans, we're going to be talented. We're going to be fun to watch. Our key is to be consistent. Last year, we're not good enough to play okay and win. We lost at Florida State. We didn't play awful, but we played okay. And we allowed them to play great. And then I look at Virginia. Virginia's probably about like we were, but we didn't play good enough to beat a team that was like us. And Notre Dame Notre Dame was better than we were. We got all over Miami. I think we were as good as Texas A&M by the end. We just lost 4 of our best players, and that really set us back. I would have liked to see that game without our opt-outs. But that's going to be the key is this bunch is getting a whole lot of attention. I saw somebody had us ranked 8th today in the way too early rankings. And are we ready to work hard enough to be 8th, not walk around and stick our chest out like we're 8th? And last year at Florida State, we walked around with our chest stuck out like we were 5th, and we weren't. So that's going to be the key. How fast can we grow up? And that's what we're working on with leadership from within right now.
All right, have about 5 minutes left. Want to just get in a couple of questions for Coach before we get out of here tonight. And again, thank you so much for joining us. Coach had a question about Dre Bly and Dre's growth as a coach and the impact that he has made on your team, both as a coach and as a recruiter.
And Jones, I'll answer these as quickly as we can so we can get as many. Sometimes I get passionate and go too far. Dre's done a tremendous job. When we hired him, nobody was really sure whether it would work or not. We knew he could recruit. He can talk. He's passionate. He loves this place. But could he coach? And I do think that his dedication to coaching and Jay Bateman being able to help him, Tommy Thigpen being able to help him, he has done a really good job with our corners. And I laugh at him, tell him he's most improved. And I said, yeah, but you had further to come. But Dre's doing a really good job for us right now.
Coach, a question about the fact that you lost some of the guys who I think were really considered leaders on your team, particularly Michael Carter on the offensive side. And who are some players who you hope will grab some of those leadership roles this upcoming season?
Defensively, Jeremiah Gimmel and Tamon Fox are 2 of the better leaders that I've ever been around. So they've got that down. Offensively, Sam is the guy. And then you've got Josh Azudu is a very good student in that offensive line, Brian Anderson. So you've got some guys that are growing, but we've still got to make sure that we fill in that big void of Michael Carter's leadership on offense.
Coach, you mentioned opt-outs and the transfers at some point in an earlier topic, and we had a question about that, just how you've decided how to manage things like that. It is a little bit new now in the world of college football with guys opting out at times, or the transfer portal, and your approach to that and how you try and manage it.
If you look at the academic schools across the country, they're going to have fewer opt-outs in most cases because we're trying to recruit young people that come here to get an education. They come here because they love this place and they're passionate about the place. And then sometimes we've had a couple of young men leave, and it might even be, we want them to stay and graduate if they can. Then if they want to go play at other places to get more playing time, I got that. And sometimes the parents want them to leave, but we treat our young people first class. And that's why we think most of the ones that we sign are going to be guys that love the place and they're going to be good enough. And if you're recruiting guys from other schools in the transfer portal, Jones, a lot of times people are talking to those people and tampering before they even go in the portal. So they know where they're going to go. And we're not going to do that because that's against the rules. So that puts us at a real disadvantage for the transfer portal. So people are hiring extra staff members to recruit out of the portal. Not my deal. If we get a great player and it's a position of need and not going to disrupt that room, that unit, then we'll take him. But don't plan on us. We're not going to be losing a lot of guys in the portal going forward, and we're not going to be taking a lot.
Coach, we've almost gone an hour here, so want to make sure that we're respectful of everyone's time. And again, we appreciate everybody joining us. But before we let you go, just any words that you may have for these great fans and supporters of Carolina football and Carolina athletics in total before we end our meeting tonight.
Yes, Jones. First, I hope and pray that you and your family have been safe, and that whatever financial hit, because most people did, that you took, that you're able to hang in there and move forward. And we've said it and can't say it enough. Thank you, thank you, thank you. We wouldn't have sports without you. And I tell the players all the time that you wouldn't have your scholarship. Somebody's paying for that. So you understand, and it's our job to make sure that we represent you, our fans, with class, in a professional manner. We want to all graduate. We want to win all the games. We want to have fun doing it. And that's what we talk to our guys about all the time. So be safe. Let's leave here today. Carolina's on a really strong path moving forward. And let's support the new coaches that Bubba has hired and is hiring. And let's make sure that we make 2021 our best year ever. And I think that's the message from me, Jones.
Coach, thank you so much for your time. Great to see you as always. How lucky are we to have Mack Brown and Courtney Banghart and John Montgomery and Bubba Cunningham and people like you've heard from over the last hour representing and leading the athletic department that we love so much. Thank you all for joining us tonight. Thank you as well for being with us on the call. A reminder again that if you're going to join us again tomorrow night, you should be receiving that link for tomorrow night's program after we conclude this one. We'll be joined tomorrow by Jenny Levy, who has the #1 ranked women's lacrosse program in the nation, undefeated and #1 seed going into the NCAA tournament, and the brand new head coach of Carolina basketball, Hubert Davis, as well. Thank you all so much for being with us tonight, and go Heels.